Hey, everybody. Welcome again to the Waiver Wire Selection Podcast. I'm Dr. Micah Nunez, Performance Athletic Trainer. My co-host here is Landon Buford. Landon, how you doing today?
I'm good. Glad we're back. I know we missed a couple weeks, so I'm glad to be back and rocking and rolling.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, I apologize for missing last week, but our goal here, like I said, as far as the Waiver Wire Selection Podcast, is to try to give you a little more in-depth information as far as what's going on with some of the players. For myself, as far as being in the professional setting, a lot of the lingo you kind of hear, day to day, questionable, week to week. That's a lot of like lingo that the professional coaches or media kind of portray out there. Or they kind of put it out. Our goal here is try to give you a little more in-depth information. And what does that mean for either whether you are in a fantasy football league and trying to decide whether you want a player, you need to pick somebody up from the waiver wire for today on Tuesday, or you're going to hold off and wait and write it out, and hopefully they'll be ready to go. So, having said that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Seeing that there's a Thursday night, or weekly Thursday night football game, we're going to start with the two teams that are playing there on Thursday night, and I believe it's the Chicago Bears against the Washington Commanders, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll start off with two of the top receivers that actually got injured this past week during week 4, and the first one was Jahan Dotson, one of the top receivers. I think he might be the second receiver, and he sustained an ankle injury. Now, from my understanding, Landon, is that they haven't really specified the degree of the ankle sprain, but I think what you had mentioned to me off this was that he was limited. That he is limited for today's practice session, right?
Right.
Now,
correct.
Most of the times when you do, now he's not a true veteran. Traditionally, when you have a veteran player, oftentimes it's very common for the team to allow the player to be in limited practice or to just pretty much not practice it at all, and then they suit up for the game type of thing. Now, this is a very short turnaround. They just played Sunday. Now they're going to play Thursday. So Jahan Dotson only has 3 days to be able to try to recover. What I'm going to go ahead and see is how his practice sessions go tomorrow, Wednesday, basically right before Thursday. If he's still on a limited basis or he's out or out, it'll be a little questionable part. So I would probably categorize him as questionable on that part. Now, the other one, which is a little more has a little bit of issue, is Curtis Samuel. I think what you had mentioned, Landon, is that he's out with a quad strain. Now, it's not just a quad contusion; it's a quad strain. So basically, this is where he tore a couple of fibers of the muscle type of thing. This takes a little bit longer to heal. This is a little more uncomfortable as far as moving. So if that is the case, if he does have a good strain, again, he only has 3 days to recover, I probably expect Curtis Samuel to be more of a doubtful for Thursday night's game. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does not play. If he doesn't play, this pretty much allows him a little more time to be able to recover for week 6 type of thing. Now, the other benefit also is that they're playing the Chicago Bears, which they are still 0-4. They did go off this past weekend, but they were playing the Denver Broncos, which I think, for the record right now, everybody goes off on the Denver Broncos as far as offense because they don't really have a defense. So I expect the Washington Commanders to go ahead and win, even without Curtis Samuel. They do still have McLaren on that part. I expect Brian Robinson to maybe run the ball a lot more in this case, but we'll see. So what are your thoughts on those two guys?
I think that out of the two, I think that Dotson probably would be, more. They're both listed as questionable. Obviously, I feel like Dotson. If you had to put a gun to my head, I think Dotson would more likely play over Samuel this week if that's the case. But if you have to go with that, there's that. But if it was me, I would go pick up another wide receiver if both of those two were in my lineup as starting wide receivers this week.
Correct. And the huge benefit is that they're playing Thursday night. So even if they don't, it gives you enough time to be able to put them and be able to pick somebody else for a Sunday night game. If it was a Monday night game, this would be a totally different scenario for all fantasy owners type of thing. Then you would be a little bit on a bind. So it's nice that the Thursday night you go in and see him. Now, the great benefit is if your league does have an IR spot when they are categorized as out, put him in that IR spot if you have it available or there's nobody in there, and then go pick up a receiver right away because the waiver wire should be afterwards and have somebody there. So it's great that they're playing Thursday night. It gives you some time, and if they don't play, get them off the bench, put them in the IR if you do have an IR, and be able to pick up another receiver. Some of the receivers out there can still benefit from. Now we're going to stick with the receivers, and we're going to talk about wide receiver with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mike Evans left the game with a hamstring issue, and he was out there on the sideline. Now, the one thing is that they haven't specified if it's a first degree or second degree hamstring strain. If it's a first degree hamstring strain, typically the time to return to performance is anywhere between 10, minimum 7 days. I mean, this is everything goes according to plan, but anywhere between 7 days to 14 days. So you got about a week to 2 weeks. So there's still a chance that he could potentially play this upcoming Sunday. If not, he'll definitely return the following week. Now, as you guys have seen over and over again, hamstring injuries are very, very tricky. Keenan Allen last year, Cooper Kupp this year, type of thing. So it's one of those things that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers sports medicine staff is going to have to be very conservative, very smart about it, because if he does go back there, aggravates it, has a setback, then he's going to be out for a longer period of time. And the way that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are kind of rolling right now, surprisingly, they're actually playing well with Baker Mayfield. You don't want to kind of jeopardize that type of thing. So they're going to have to be smart about it. So he has a hamstring strain. It's just a matter of seeing. Now, but what we want to see is, as the week progresses, what is his participation in practice. If by Thursday or Friday he's returned to a full practice, that's a great sign. If he's limited in practice, we'll see what happens. But if you see reports that he's actually not practicing and he's rehabbing with the sideline crew, that's a whole different story. That's not a good sign. So we want to see him slowly progress to a full practice, hopefully either by Friday. If he's full practice by Friday, he should be ready to go. If not, but in this case, I'd probably say he's a true questionable type of thing. It's just a matter of waiting to see throughout the week. All right, we're going to stay with receivers here, and we're going to talk about T. Higgins, wide receiver with the Cincinnati Bengals. He left the game, I think it was the second quarter, week 4, with a rib injury type of thing. Now, the reports out there is that, like you mentioned, Landon, that you read a report.
He's going to play with it. So, yeah.
That he's expected to play, or he wants to at least to try to play. Now, the interesting part about a rib injury is, if everybody is familiar with the ribs is the one that pretty much protect your chest, protect your lungs type of thing. Now, there's muscles that attach to the ribs, and these muscles are the ones that help expand your thorax and bring it down to help you breathe. So when you have a rib cage injury or rib injuries, every time you take a deep breath, anytime you sneeze, anytime you laugh, you're going to feel that pain and discomfort in the rib cage type of thing. So it's going to be interesting to see how he manages it. Now, traditionally, what they do this with NFL players is they'll most likely get what's called a total shot. They get an injection in there to kind of numb the area, reduce the pain, and be able to kind of go and play type thing. Second, what they'll probably do, they'll give him a special jacket to protect that rib cage area. So if he does get hit, so underneath those pads, he's going to have another kind of almost like a vest type of thing to protect that rib. So if he does get hit, because every time he gets hit, if he doesn't have that, every time he gets hit in that area, he's going to feel some discomfort. Anytime he brings his arms up, he's going to feel discomfort. Every time he rotates, he's going to feel discomfort. Every time he runs, he's going to feel some discomfort. So it's going to be interesting. So say the least, if he does play, he's going to be in some mild discomfort. Now, if you do have T. Higgins in your lineup, it'll be interesting whether they're going to limit his counts or his sessions out on the field. So it'll be interesting. So if I was me, even though it's T. Higgins, he is planning to play, I may not put him on my lineup for this week. I may go ahead and just bench him type of thing. The other issue that we're having, and we'll go right into this also, is that his quarterback is not at full 100% right now. Yep. So as everybody saw, he's been struggling. So when the quarterback's struggling, the receiver is struggling. So now you have two banged up, a quarterback and a receiver that's kind of banged up type of thing. So we're going to go straight into the quarterback with Joe Burrow. He sustained a calf injury way back at the beginning of training camp. Everything looked good, but he aggravated it or had a little bit of setback, I believe it was week 2. Now, the downside to this is that, unfortunately, he doesn't have enough time to rest and recover. So that issue is going to be there the whole entire season, or at least until they get to the bye week and they're able to kind of shut him down for that week and give him time to heal. Until then, he's not going to be his normal self. I guarantee that he's not going to be able to rush, and that he hasn't been able to rush because he's not be able to take the sprints, and he's going to have to kind of do short, quick passes type of thing. So as of right now, all the receivers with the Cincinnati Bengals are kind of suffering from Joe Burrow's having the calf issue. So you throw in Joe Burrow's already kind of hurt. Now you have T. Higgins in your lineup. I'd probably sit T. Higgins this week and let him see recover, even though he says he's going to go ahead and play. So what do you think?
I think that, wasn't he supposed to be out 3 to 4 weeks already with that calf injury? I guess they don't have a decent backup that could sit there and
correct.
And what's it called? So they have them playing. I was on Clubhouse talking about this last night, and the report was out there that he was supposed to be out as many weeks as Jalen Ramsey as well, who's still out with the Miami Dolphins because
Yep.
they had the same injury, right? Calf injury, or was his okay? It was
Yeah,
a calf
no,
strain.
yeah. So he suffered the initial injury, the calf injury, in week 1 or like the first or second day of training camp, which they gave him a good 4 weeks to be able to recover. So returning to performance from a calf strain is about 4 to 6 weeks. So he was at the very end of that 4 weeks, and
Right.
I think other reports were saying that he looked pretty good, type of thing. Now that he re-aggravated and strained it again, you're either looking at another 4 to 6 weeks. But I know, like you mentioned, is that the Bengals went 0-2 and they
Right.
couldn't go 0-3. So he played that one game. He was able
Yeah.
to get through it. They were able to win this game, but then they just lost in week 4. So the question is, do you sit, for the Cincinnati Bengals, do they sit Joe Burrow
Right.
for a good 4 weeks to let him recover? And by then, are they going to pretty much be out of the playoff hunt? Because they're what? They're 1-4 right now. Yeah,
They're 1-4.
Yeah.
People were asking, should they actually shut him down, tank, and then go after another quarterback? And it's like, well, you just paid this man $275 million. You can't do that.
No,
You're going to hinder. It's not fair to the next quarterback that you come if you do that. And then in this case, it could be Williams from USC. You do that to him, and he's sitting behind Joe Burrow, and you have to pay. You have to play Burrow now because you paid him $250 million or $75 million.
Yeah, no, there's no way. Yeah, and I think that's the other reason why it's playing, because they paid him so much money that there's no way they're going to be able to tank. He is their starting quarterback for the next 5-6 years.
5 years, yeah, exactly, at least.
Correct, and maybe it was the 5th year of his contract. Then I can see them kind of tanking because they're ready to kind of go forward from that point. But
they just paid it. They just paid him, and similar to what happened with Russell Wilson last year. You pay him, they don't have a good season until the end of the season. That's when they started, they racked off 5 wins, I think it was, late or whatever. But, you make an investment. You can't sit there and not play this dude. It's just like in the NBA. You're going to hinder somebody else's career just because you paid somebody else. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
So
correct.
They can't sit on a bench. You know what I'm saying? Because you already invested in these guys.
So I have Ja'Marr Chase in one of my leagues. And
Ja'Marr Chase in
one of my leagues, and I'm actually trying to trade him away and try to get something else, because the way I see it, as long as Joe Burrow has that injury or that issue with his calf, it's going to be a long season, and I don't think Ja'Marr Chase is going to get the numbers as he did last year.
And he was on the TV last week talking about I'm always open or whatever it is. So that's definitely a shot at your offensive coordinator and your quarterback. So you know what I'm saying? So
correct. So what I see happening is, like they say, the squeaky wheel gets oiled. I expect Ja'Marr Chase probably to go off this week because he had the outburst. Yeah. And then once he goes off, try to sell him high, get another top receiver, because he's a first round pick as far as in fantasy football. He definitely he went that. He had to go either second, third, or fourth in everybody's draft. I don't see him
for the wide receiver. Yeah,
as a wide receiver.
Justin Jefferson, it's probably Justin Jefferson and then him, and then you can go down from there from the wide receivers, or him and then Justin Jefferson, and then whatever else you want to do with the.
Correct. So if you can go out there and maybe trade for like an Austin Eckler, because I'm sure the Austin Eckler owners right now are kind of frustrated because he's going to be out for at least when they have the bye. If any, he may come back to week 6. So speaking of Austin Eckler, we'll go talk right into Austin Eckler since I brought him up. So Austin Eckler was been out since week 1. Now back then they said it was an ankle sprain, and then finally they released it that he actually has a high ankle sprain. And the one thing you got to be aware is that the high ankle sprain is not as normal as your typical common ankle sprain. A high ankle sprain return to performance can take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, which that's been the case. He's been out. Now, the huge benefit for the Chargers is that they have a week 5 as a bye week, so it allows them to rest. So I actually expect the earliest, obviously, for Austin Eckler to be able to return is week 6. So it's just a matter of kind of seeing how he does throughout this week or the next week to be able to return. There's a very good chance he should be able to return to week 6. I hate to say this, but if you're in a fantasy football league and there's an owner that has Austin Eckler right now and they're suffering and they lose week 5, it might probably be a perfect time to try to see if you can grab Austin Eckler from them top thing, because he should be able to return week 6, if not definitely by week 7 on that part. All right, let's talk about two ACL players that have been out and they were on IR and haven't returned. We're going to talk about Kyle Murray and Von Miller. So Kyle Murray, the quarterback with the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I think this is something that we actually touched upon earlier in one of our podcasts. I think week 1 or week 2, where some of the rumors that I had read is that Kyle Murray wasn't really too happy with the Arizona Cardinals management, so to speak. So he wasn't too much in a rush to return to the lineup or as a starter type of thing. And I think what you had mentioned, Landon, is that, and I think I also read reports that even though he's eligible to come off IR, they're going to get him off the IR, but they're not going to activate him for week 5 because I think the rule is that they have up to 21 days to decide whether you're going to reactivate him, and if not, they have to go back on IR. So they have another 3 weeks for them to do. And same thing with the linebacker with the Buffalo Bills, Von Miller. Same exact issue that's going on. I think that the same reports is that he's coming off IR, but he's going to send the POP list, and they're not going to activate him until further notice.
And that's what he said that was straight from his mouth a couple weeks ago. So I mean, it's not reporters saying that. They reported it straight from his mouth, him saying that. So
all right, moving on, we're going to talk about Kenny Pickett, quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, he left the game with knee injury, and they were kind of a little concerned. And one of the huge benefits, or one of the positive things that they discovered, that his ACL was actually okay. So, if you guys recall at the beginning of the year, when tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs, Travis Kelce, went out with the game, they were also concerned with the ACL. So, this is kind of the same case scenario that Kenny Pickett has that Travis Kelce had. So Kenny Pickett has been officially diagnosed with a bone bruise. Now, the bone bruise in the knee is going to create a bit of swelling. It's going to create a little bit of discomfort in that area, and depends on where the bone bruise is located. Every time the bones of the knees kind of click or connect, he may experience some discomfort. Now, the reports are pretty positive. I think what I've read, he's going to try to go this upcoming weekend for week 5, and then we're going to go in and see how he goes on that part.
All right. What about we're gonna stick with quarterbacks. What about not Justin Fields, I'm sorry.
Justin Herbert.
Justin Herbert, yes.
Yeah. So Justin Herbert at the end of the game reported that he fractured his middle finger. Now the huge thing about this, or the positive thing about this, is that it's in his non-throwing hand. So that's a great thing for him. That he has a huge benefit on that part because he doesn't have to grip the ball. It was in his left hand, so it was in a non-throwing hand. All they'll do with the sports medicine staff most likely is either just tape it, buddy tape it, or put a little splint on there to be able to kind of support it. Now, he has to be very careful because while he's holding the football, if someone hits his hand or bangs his hand, he may experience some discomfort. Now, on the part, he's expected to go. Usually, a fracture takes anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks to heal. The other positive thing is that the San Diego Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers are also on a bye for week 5, just like we talked about Austin Eckler. So it allows him 2 full weeks to be able to heal, kind of recover from it, and be able to come back in week 6 during the regular season.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Let's go on to the Cowboys. I'm having some technical difficulties too.
Uh-oh.
So yeah.
Okay. So we got a couple of Cowboys. We have 2 key players. One of them obviously is one of their top defensive player in Micah Parsons, and they mentioned that he has knee issue. And from watching the game, I believe he left the game, was able to return and kind of continue playing. So that's a huge positive sign. Now, unfortunately, they haven't disclosed as far as exactly what he has in his knee, whether it's a tendon issue, whether it's a ligament issue, whether it's a bruise or anything like that. So it's kind of tough for us to speculate, to discuss it, because all we would do right now is kind of speculate on that part. But one of his teammates on the other side of the line, as far as the offensive lineman, one of the key offensive linemen, Zach Martin, I believe is dealing with what you call a bruised quad. And a quad is basically that muscle that's right in front of your leg. And a quad contusion or bruise, as they're calling it, can be very uncomfortable when you're running. Now, a lineman has to get in a 3-point stance or in a position which you are constantly activating that quad, so that can become very uncomfortable. And so at this point, it becomes more of a pain tolerance issue for the athlete. Once they feel comfortable, hey, I can tolerate the pain, I can move with no major discomfort or major limitations, I'm kind of ready, set to go, or there's any swelling on that part. They'll probably put additional padding in that area, so if he does get hit, it doesn't increase any more pain or has any setbacks type of thing. So it's just a matter of waiting and seeing how he does throughout the practice. Again, Zach Martin is a veteran player, so I wouldn't be surprised that he does not practice whatsoever this week and is ready to play on Sunday. So we'll see how he does. Plus, they're playing the 49ers. So I know this is a huge game for the Dallas Cowboys. So I know I wouldn't be surprised some of these veteran players, which have the type A personality, they're very competitive, are going to want to play no matter what. So I personally expect to see Zach Martin out there and Micah Parsons.
Okay.
And then one of their cornerbacks, I think this happened last week, Travion Diggs, number 7 cornerback for the Dallas Cowboys, was actually reported and confirmed that he tore his ACL during the practice. I believe it was like on Thursday or Wednesday last week. So he's definitely out for the rest of the year. He's going to have surgery. Return to performances anywhere between 8 to 12 months. He should be set to go for the upcoming season. At least, if not minimum, he should be able to start warming up or returning around training camp for the 2024 season.
Yep.
All right, so one of the other players we're going to talk about is not the Dallas Cowboys, but he's been one of the top running backs last year, and there was a big issues of his contract or extension contract for this year, and that's Jonathan Taylor, running back for the Indianapolis Colts.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Now, reports are, and I think you mentioned this, Landon, that he is coming off IR and that he's scheduled to practice tomorrow, Wednesday, with the team. The big question is that even though he's practicing, is he going to return to the lineup?
Yep.
Have you heard anything, or what are your thoughts on that?
I haven't heard much on it. I mean, obviously, he's one of the best running backs in the league. Obviously, like if they're trying to get rid of him, they're asking for the moon for him. And for a position that they're trying to ultimately looks like eliminate, you know what I mean, in regards to, having to try to pay these guys and stuff like that. So he's kind of in a between a rock and a hard place right now, right? So and he's on his rookie deal, right? So this is his first contract. If he's available, you gotta play him, right? Because I mean, obviously, you have a rookie quarterback in Richardson. I don't know if he's playing this week or not. Gardner Minshew is a quarterback that would be is capable of obviously, commanding respect and things of that nature. Especially, I think he helped them win last week, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I mean, if he's available, you have to play Jonathan Taylor. He's one of the top 5 running backs in the league at his position.
Yeah.
So you have to play him. If he's available to play, you have to play him.
Correct. Yeah, and they have an interesting situation now with the Indianapolis Colts. So Anthony Richardson is probably right now, the way he's performing, he's going to be a top, as long as he stays healthy and keeps performing. He's got
to learn how to slide, though. He's got to learn how to slide.
He's going to definitely in as one of the top 5 QBs in the NFL at the end of the season. I wouldn't be surprised in fantasy points if he ends up as the top number 1 or top number 2, because the way he's playing, I think I was looking at some of his statistics, is that right now he's the 7th quarterback in the NFL. And keep in mind that he's missed about 7 quarters. 7 quarters. He missed last week, and then he missed half of week 2 from a concussion, and he's at the top 7th quarterback. Now, the other backup running back, Zach Moss, has actually been performing very, very well. So the urgency for them to get Jonathan Taylor back or put him in the lineup is kind of interesting, because now you got 2 top running backs. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor is the elite running back over Zach Moss, but Zach Moss has been playing well at the same
serviceable
time.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct. So so the Indianapolis Colts have something to, they have to decide. Or not only that, but if you do, as a fantasy owner, if you have Zach Moss and you see that Jonathan Taylor is on the lineup, are you going to play Zach Moss? Is there going to be a 50-50 share between Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss, or is it going to start 60 Zach Moss this week, 40, and then next week is going to kind of change the numbers as it goes along? So it's going to be interesting for week 5, and the first goal is to try to see if Jonathan Taylor is even activated. If he is activated, like you mentioned, if it is Jonathan Taylor, you cannot not play him. If you leave him in your bench and then he goes off, it's kind of interesting type of thing. So it's so those owners of Jonathan Taylor in the Fantasy Football League are in a little tough situation. Now, if Zach Moss hadn't been going off like he has all this week, that's a no-brainer. Jonathan comes in, boom, we're ready to roll. So we'll see what happens.
And then final question for the NFL. We're probably gonna have to do 2 episodes. We're gonna have to do because we also want to add basketball to this current week's what's it called. But this will be the final piece of information for the football side of things before we cut it off for the halfway point. Jamal Adams concussion last night. He's been out for a while. This is what's supposed to be his first game back. Obviously, he wasn't happy playing 9 snaps or whatever it is, and then got the concussion call. Thoughts about that? What is that? What is that protocol? Things of that nature.
Correct. And this is kind of interesting because I think there was he's been out I think I read a statistic. He's been out 385 days. It was his first game back, and he suffered a concussion the very first quarter. I think it was the very first series of the play, and then he was out. Now, there's a video out there that I saw that he was very upset with it's not the team doctor. And that's
sure. No, it's the independent doctor.
Exactly. So what the NFL has done now is that they've taken away the decision making when it comes to a concussion from the team and given it to an independent physician. So during every game, there's an independent physician that comes in that's not affiliated with any team, has no interest whether a player plays for that team or not, does not benefit whatsoever. Their job is to go there, assess the athlete, and determine whether they're experiencing concussion-like symptoms and whether they're allowed to go in and play. And I think there's a video out there that I saw actually this morning where Jamal Adams is kind of yelling at this doctor.
Yep.
And some of the team members of the Seahawks sports medicine are kind of holding him back, type of thing. Now, I imagine from his end, it's just frustration.
Yep.
It's like, dude, I was just out 385 days.
Yep.
I finally came back, and now you're
giving me a concussion.
You're correct.
Yeah.
You're telling me that I cannot go out and play. But keep in mind, the doctor's job is to protect the athlete from the athlete, and he was basically doing his job, type of thing. Yeah. And I think this stemmed a lot from last year's with Tua. We talked about Tua, where they cleared him. He went out there and played, re-aggravated, had another concussion, type of thing. So now it's one of those things that, and the doctors put in a little tough situation because he's trying to do his job. Jamal Adams is upset because he's been out 385 days, type of thing. So what I imagine is they're going to go ahead and reevaluate him. They probably should have reevaluated him already either yesterday and today, and determine whether he goes into the NFL concussion protocol like every player does. And then he has to stay there until he's able to clear and then return to play. So does this mean that he's not going to play the rest of the season? No, it does not mean that he's not going to be able to play in week 5, type of thing. It's just basically he has to go to the protocol. They have to take the time to reassess him and clear him, because at the end of the day, I get Jamal Adams is upset and he wants to go out there and play. But at the end of the day, the team, and I'm sure deep down Jamal Adams doesn't want to have another incident like Tua, because if Jamal hasn't been out and he suffers another concussion, he can be out for more weeks or out the rest of the season.
That makes sense.
So
that makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and cut this one half off, and then we're going to come back with another link for the actual second part. So, guys, thank you guys for this. This first half of the NFL part. We're going to be back here in a second with a couple NBA injury updates as well. All right, I'm Landon Buford. This is my co-host partner, Marco Nunez, and we'll be back here in maybe three minutes or so.